The day my parents stole my future, they did it over coffee and banana bread. I remember because Mum had just pulled the loaf from the oven, and the sweet smell filled our kitchen as they told me I wouldn't be going to college after all. My name is Harmony, and I was 17 when I learned that blood doesn't always mean loyalty. "We've been thinking," Mom said, cutting perfect triangles of bread while Dad stared into his mug. "Your brother Kyson has such potential in medicine. His MCAT scores were exceptional." I nodded, already feeling my stomach twist. My brother lounged against the counter, scrolling through his phone with that familiar smirk I'd grown to hate. "The thing is," Dad finally looked up, "college funds aren't unlimited, and with medical school costs..." "You're taking my college fund?" The words came out smaller than I meant them to. Mum's knife clinked against the plate. "We're investing in one future instead of splitting resources thin." "You're smart, honey. You'll get married, have children. College is just a backup plan for girls like you." I'd maintained straight A's since 4th grade, worked part-time since 15, volunteered at the hospital every summer, but none of that mattered because Kyson wanted to be a doctor. "Grandpa Clint left that money for me," I said, my voice steadier than my hands. "He specifically said..." "Your grandfather would understand," Mom cut in. "Family decisions are about the greater good. Kyson's future will benefit everyone." My brother finally looked up. "Don't be dramatic, sis. You can always take loans or whatever." I watched them eat their bread, discuss Kyson's bright future, plan his apartment near medical school. They'd already transferred the money. They weren't asking my permission. They were informing me of a decision made long ago. That night, I cleaned rooms at the Sunset Motel, scrubbing toilets and changing sheets until my fingers cramped. My phone buzzed with a bank notification. Account balance $247.32. "Happy birthday to me," I whispered to the empty room, 18 years old and starting from zero. The next morning, Mom was planning Kyson's graduation party. "We're thinking of inviting the Hendersons," she said, not looking up from her planner. "Their daughter married a neurosurgeon." "Sounds nice," I replied, packing my lunch for work. "I picked up extra shifts this weekend." "Oh, well, don't work too hard. You don't want to look tired at the party." I smiled, the kind of smile that costs nothing but holds everything. "I won't." Later that week, Dad caught me researching student loans in the living room. "Princess," he said, using the nickname he'd abandoned years ago, "don't stress yourself. Everything works out in the end." "Does it?" I asked, not looking up from my laptop. "Your brother will take care of you once he's established. That's what family does." I closed my laptop slowly. "Yes, Dad, that's exactly what family does." The acceptance letter from State arrived on a Tuesday. Full tuition would be $24,000 per year. Room and board another $12,000. Books, fees, living expenses. The numbers blurred together like tears. "I got in," I told Mom over dinner. "That's nice, honey." She turned to Kyson. "Did you hear back from that apartment complex near medical school?" I excused myself early, drove to the motel and picked up my cleaning cart. In room 115, I found a half-empty champagne bottle the guests had left behind. Sitting on the freshly made bed, I raised it in a mock toast. "To family," I whispered, then pulled out my phone and took a screenshot of my empty college fund account. The timestamp read 11:59 p.m., the last minute of my childhood. That night, I started a new document on my phone. At the top, I typed, "Things I won't forget." Below it, I listed the exact amount they'd taken, 87,430 My grandfather's gift, earned from 40 years of working at the steel mill, gone in a single bank transfer. The next morning, Kyson burst into my room. "Hey, need to borrow your car? Mine's getting detailed for graduation." I handed him my keys without argument. He'd return it with an empty tank, like always. "Thanks, sis. You're the best." He paused at the door. "You're not still upset about the college thing, right? It's just business." I looked at my brother, golden boy, future doctor, the son my parents actually wanted. just business," I echoed. "I understand completely." When he left, I opened my document again and added a new line, "Everything is business." 3 years later, I'd learned that Kyson failed his first semester of medical school. 5 years later, I'd discover my parents remortgaged their house to hide his second failure. 7 years later, I'd own that house. But on that day, I just cleaned rooms, counted tips, and planned. Because revenge, like trauma therapy, my future profession, though I didn't know it yet, works best when served with patience, precision, and a smile that never quite reaches your eyes. College life began in a cramped dorm room with a broken AC unit and a roommate who would change everything. Zara stood in the doorway, arms full of legal textbooks, wearing a hijab that matched her perfectly winged eyeliner. "Top or bottom bunk?" she asked, dropping her books with a thud. "Either is fine," I said, arranging my single suitcase of belongings. "Bottom it is. I sleepwalk sometimes." She grinned. "I'm pre-law. You? Psychology, on loans and prayer." She nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Same. Want to split ramen costs?" That was the beginning of my new family. Between classes I worked 3 jobs: morning shifts at the campus coffee shop, evening reception at a local gym, and weekend data entry for an insurance company. Every penny went into a spreadsheet I updated obsessively. "Girl, you're going to burn out," Zara said one night, finding me studying at 3 a.m. "When's the last time you called home?" I showed her my phone. 15 missed calls from Mom, all about Kyson's amazing first semester at medical school. They only call to brag about him anyway. Zara sat beside me. "Tell me everything." So I did. The stolen college fund, the constant comparisons, the years of being invisible unless they needed something. She listened, then pulled out her laptop. "We're documenting everything," she declared. "Every conversation, every email, every financial transaction. I'm teaching you about paper trails." I started recording phone calls with my parents, saving screenshots of texts and keeping detailed notes of every interaction. It became our project, my pain transformed into evidence. Mum called during midterms. "Kyson's having a hard time adjusting to medical school. We sent him some extra money for tutoring." "That's nice," I said, adding it to my records. "I got a 4.0 this semester." "Oh, that's good. Listen, your brother needs—" "Sorry, Mum. My shift starts in 5 minutes." I hung up and turned to Zara. "Add it to the file." Months passed. I earned scholarships, made Dean's List, built a reputation as the go-to tutor for Psych 101. Meanwhile, Kyson's Instagram showed more parties than study sessions. Then came the call I'd been waiting for. "Your brother's taking a break from medical school," Dad said, his voice tight. "Just a temporary situation. Don't mention it to anyone." I kept my voice neutral. "Of course not. Is he okay?" "He's regrouping. Your mother's quite upset." I bet she was. I added the date to my growing file. First med school failure, December 15th. Zara helped me track the financial aftermath. My parents took out a second mortgage, liquidated their retirement accounts, all while maintaining the facade that Kyson was focusing on his studies. "They're drowning themselves to protect his ego," Zara observed, reviewing their public records. "And they still haven't asked how you're doing. They sent a Christmas card addressed to Harmony and Roommate." She snorted. "Keep that. We're building a story here." By junior year, I'd landed an internship at a trauma therapy center. The director, Sebastian, noticed my dedication and attention to detail. "You understand pain," he said during my evaluation. "Not just academically. You live it." I told him my story. He listened, then offered me a deal. Part-time work during senior year, with the possibility of partnership after graduation. "Build something of your own," he said. "Success is the best revenge." That night, I received an email from Mom. Kyson's returning to medical school. We're so proud. By the way, could you send us your graduation date? We might have a conflict with Kyson's white coat ceremony. I forwarded it to Zara, who'd become my unofficial archivist. She replied with a single word: soon. The day I got accepted into the elite trauma therapy graduate program, I celebrated by buying a small safe. Inside went every document, every record, every piece of evidence I'd collected. Your parents still don't know you're in grad school? Zara asked, helping me organise the files. They haven't asked. Last week, Mom called to see if I could help Kyson study for his boards. I told her I was busy. With your master's degree? With work stuff. They hear what they want to hear. I graduated with honours, my name in the local paper. No family in the audience, just Zara and Sebastian cheering loudly enough to fill the gap. That evening, I added my diploma to the safe and reviewed my documentation. 3 years of systematic emotional neglect, financial manipulation, and the slow collapse of their carefully constructed lies. My phone buzzed. Dad, Kyson needs a co-signer for his new apartment near medical school. Your mother and I are tapped out. Would you consider... I let it go to voicemail. They never learn, do they? Zara said, reading over my shoulder. No, I replied, adding the message to my files. But they will. The safe clicked shut, holding 4 years of truth they thought I'd never collect. My parents taught me to be invisible. They just forgot that invisible people see everything, and I had seen it all. Tell me about your mother, my client Sarah said, settling into the leather armchair across from me. You understand family trauma so well. Did she hurt you too? I maintained my professional smile. This hour is about you, Sarah. Let's focus on your healing. 3 years into private practice, and I'd become known for handling generational trauma cases. Clients sought me out specifically for family-related issues. The irony wasn't lost on me. My office was everything my childhood home wasn't. Calm, organised, safe, soft grey walls, natural light, and a small fountain that whispered peace into every session. A place where truth was welcome. After Sarah left, Zara breezed in with lunch. Now a successful paralegal, she still made time for our weekly meetings. Your waiting list is getting ridiculous, she said, dropping a salad on my desk. 6 weeks out. 8, actually. People really need to talk about their families. Speaking of family, she pulled out her phone. Kyson's back in med school. 3rd time's the charm. I took the phone, examining my brother's Facebook post. Back to the grind. Future MD, harsher, never give up. Your parents must be thrilled, Zara said, watching my face. They remortgaged the house again. I saw the paperwork yesterday. How do you always know these things? I smiled. Public records are public for a reason. My phone buzzed. Dad's number. I put it on speaker. Princess, Kyson's back in medical school. He just needs this one shot. We're a little tight right now. I'm with a client, Dad. I wasn't. Can we talk later? Of course. Just think about family, okay? After hanging up, I gripped my water glass so hard it shattered. Blood dripped onto my pristine carpet as Zara rushed for the first aid kit. Easy there, Lady Vengeance, she said, wrapping my hand. Save it for the endgame. That evening I had dinner with Sebastian, my business partner. We met monthly to discuss the practice's growth, but tonight was different. I need to expand, I told him, pushing around my pasta. Buy property, create something permanent. He studied me over his glasses. This isn't just about the practice, is it? No. Tell me. I outlined my plan. Sebastian listened, then pulled out his phone and made a call. Janet, those investment properties we discussed, let's move forward, all of them. Later that night, I reviewed my client notes. Sarah struggling with her mother's manipulation, Marcus fighting his father's financial abuse, Jessica learning to set boundaries with toxic siblings. My phone lit up with a text from Mum. Kaizen's white coat ceremony is next month. He's really doing it this time. Can you send money for his new stethoscope? $300 should cover it. I added the text to my evidence file, then opened my laptop to check property records. The house I grew up in, the one they'd remortgaged 3 times for Kaizen's failed attempts, was drowning in debt. My office phone rang. A new client. "I heard you specialise in family trauma," the voice said. "My parents, they always favoured my sister. They took everything from me." "I understand completely," I replied, my voice steady. "When would you like to begin?" "How soon can you see me?" 8 weeks, unless you'd like to be on my emergency list." "Please, I've waited long enough." "Haven't we all?" I thought. The next morning I met with my accountant. "Your practice is thriving," she said. "You could expand to multiple locations." "Just one more office," I replied. "Something close to home." That afternoon, between sessions, I drove past my childhood house. Mom was in the garden, probably stress planting like she always did when money was tight. She didn't notice me. My phone rang. "Kaizen, sis, don't tell Mom and Dad, but I need help. Just a small loan. $2,000. For school?" "Yeah, totally. Books and stuff." I checked my records. His tuition was already overdue. This wasn't for books. "I'll think about it," I said. "You're the best. Always knew I could count on you." I ended the call and added it to the file labelled Kaizen's Lies. Back at the office, my last client of the day was a woman who'd finally confronted her family after 30 years of abuse. "How did you do it?" I asked. She smiled. "I realised silence doesn't mean weakness. Sometimes it means you're planning." After she left, I stood at my office window, watching the sunset paint the city gold. My phone buzzed with another text from Mom. "Kaizen's ceremony is so important. The whole family will be there. Please don't embarrass us by missing it." I touched the scar on my hand from the broken glass, then opened my laptop. Property records, bank statements, loan applications, years of their financial desperation laid bare. "Don't worry, Mom," I whispered to the empty room. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." The fountain bubbled quietly, a steady rhythm like a countdown. In my drawer, a stack of papers waited for the perfect moment. Everything was in place. All I needed now was patience. "Congratulations," Sebastian said, sliding the deed across his desk. "You're now the proud owner of your childhood home." 6 months of careful planning had led to this moment. Through an anonymous LLC, I'd purchased all outstanding debts on my parents' house. Every mortgage, every lien, every overdue tax bill, all now belonged to me. "They have no idea," Zara said, reviewing the paperwork. "Your parents think some investment company bought their debt." I traced my finger over the property address. "They'll find out soon enough. The house that had never truly been my home was now legally mine. The same house they'd threatened to sell for Kaizen's tuition. The same house where they'd told me college wasn't for girls like me." My phone buzzed. "Mom, honey, we need to talk about Kaizen," she said, her voice shaking. "He's taking another break from medical school." "Another break?" I kept my voice neutral, professional. "What happened?" "Just some difficulties with exams, but he's not giving up. We just need to figure out the financial situation." I opened my laptop, pulling up their credit reports. They'd maxed out 3 cards trying to hide Kaizen's latest failure. "How much did you spend this time?" I asked. "What do you mean?" "On trying to keep him in school, 20,000, 30. Silence. Then, "How did you know about that?" "I work with trauma, Mom. I recognise patterns." She started crying. Not the manipulative tears I'd grown up with, real ones. "We're going to lose the house. We need help." I glanced at the deed on my desk. "Have you considered selling?" "We can't. The bank... There are complications." "I see." I paused. "Would you like to come over? We could talk about options." Really? Hope crept into her voice. Your father and I could come tomorrow? Perfect. I'll make tea. After hanging up, I called Zara. It's time. Are you ready for this? I looked at my reflection in the office window. I've been ready for 10 years. That evening, I drove past the house again. Dad's car was in the driveway, hood up, probably trying to fix it himself rather than admit they couldn't afford a mechanic. Kyson's expensive SUV sat next to it, a repo notice tucked under the windshield wiper. My phone lit up with a text from him. Hey sis, remember that loan I asked about? Getting kind of urgent. I added it to my evidence file without responding. The next morning I prepared my apartment carefully. Lavender tea, Mom's favourite. Dad's preferred coffee creamer, small comforts before the storm. They arrived looking older than I remembered. Mum's designer clothes couldn't hide her exhaustion. Dad's hands shook slightly as he accepted the coffee. We need $80,000, he said without preamble, to save the house and help Kyson get back on track. I stirred my tea. That's a lot of money. You're doing so well, Mom said, gesturing at my apartment. Your practice is successful. You're the strong one, honey. You always were. Strong enough to handle college without help? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Dad flinched. Princess, that was a long time ago. We did what we thought was best. And how did that work out? Mom reached for my hand. We know we made mistakes, but family helps family. Please. I stood and walked to my desk, removing an envelope. You're right. Family helps family. Relief flooded their faces as I handed it over. Mum clutched it like a lifeline. Don't cash it, I said softly. Just open it in court. Court? Dad's coffee cup clattered against the saucer. What are you talking about? A knock at the door. Zara entered, professional in her paralegal suit, carrying a stack of papers. Mr. and Mrs. Murray, she said formally, this is a notice of property transfer and a cease and desist order regarding any financial activities related to 1542 Maple Street. Mum's hands trembled as she opened my envelope. Inside was a copy of the deed, with my name on it. Dad stood up. You bought our house. 6 months ago. I kept my voice calm. Through Murray Healing Properties, LLC. I own everything. The mortgages, the liens, even the overdue property taxes you tried to hide. Mum's face went white. Why? Because you taught me that family helps family. I'm helping by stopping this cycle of financial destruction. You can't do this, Dad said. We're your parents. And I'm the strong one, remember? Strong enough to watch you drain my college fund. Strong enough to work 3 jobs while studying. Strong enough to build something you can't take away. Zara placed a folder on the coffee table. These papers require your signatures. They acknowledge the transfer of property and agree to vacate within 30 days. 30 days? Mum whispered. Where will we go? I thought of my 18-year-old self standing in an empty motel room with nothing but determination. You'll figure it out, I said, echoing their words from so long ago. Everything works out in the end. They left with the papers, shoulders slumped, looking as lost as I once felt. But I didn't feel triumphant, just quiet. You okay? Zara asked. I picked up Mom's half-empty teacup. I'm just getting started. The honey lavender tea steamed in delicate china cups. Grandma's old set, the one Mom always coveted but never received. I arranged cookies on a silver tray, each detail perfect for this second family meeting. 3 days had passed since I revealed my ownership of their house. Now they were back, desperation replacing their initial shock. Your brother's here too, Mom texted. He needs to be part of this discussion. Perfect. They arrived looking like they hadn't slept. Kyson slouched in last, wearing designer clothes that still had tags tucked inside, another habit I'd documented over the years. Sit, I said, gesturing to my carefully arranged living room. Tea? This isn't a social call, Dad started, but Mom cut him off. Tea would be lovely, honey. I poured 4 cups, the familiar scent filling the room. Mum's hands shook as she took hers. "We've been talking," she said, "about everything, about the past." "Have you?" I settled into my armchair, therapist mode, engaged. "Tell me more." "Look," Kyson burst out, "we get it. You're angry about the college thing, but this is extreme." I sipped my tea. "Is it? You're throwing your own parents out of their house." "My house," I corrected gently. "Legally purchased, just like your 3rd attempt at medical school was legally funded by their remortgage." Dad leaned forward. "Princess, we can work something out. A payment plan, maybe." "Like the payment plan for my college fund." The words came out soft, controlled. "The one that never materialized." "That was different," Mom protested. "We were investing in your brother's future." "And how's that investment working out?" Kyson stood up, fists clenched. "You think you're so perfect? At least I tried to do something meaningful." "Sit down," I said, not raising my voice. "Your tea's getting cold." He sat, more from surprise than obedience. "I have a proposition," I continued, reaching for my briefcase. "One last family investment opportunity." Hope flickered across their faces. Mum clutched Dad's hand. "You'll help?" she whispered. "I'm offering you a chance to keep the house," I said, removing an envelope. "With conditions." Dad reached for it, but I held it back. "First, let's discuss Kyson's recent activities. The money he borrowed from his employer's petty cash. The credit cards he opened in your names." Kyson went pale. "How did you—" "I have excellent resources," I turned to my parents. "Did you know about that?" Mom's teacup clattered against its saucer. "What money from his employer?" "Tell them, brother dear, about the $5,000 you borrowed to cover gambling debts. The same week you asked me for $2,000 for books." "Is this true?" Dad's voice cracked. Kyson stared at the floor. "I was going to pay it back." "With what?" I asked. "Your future doctor's salary." "You're just jealous," he spat. "You always wanted what I had." "What you had?" I laughed softly. "I wanted what was mine. The money Grandpa Clint left for my education. The parents who should have loved us equally." Mum started crying. "We did love you both." "No," I said, opening the envelope. "You loved the idea of him, the successful son, the doctor, the investment that kept failing." I spread out documents across the coffee table. Bank statements, credit reports, employment records. "Sign these," I said, "and I'll consider a new payment arrangement for the house." Dad picked up the papers, scanning them with growing horror. "This is everything." "Everything," I confirmed. "Every loan, every lie, every time you chose him over me. Sign them and we'll go to court together. Let a judge see the whole story." "You'd do that to your own family?" Kyson demanded. I met his eyes. "Family? Like when you told everyone I was too busy with my little therapy job to attend your white coat ceremony. The one that never happened because you'd already dropped out." Mum reached for the papers with trembling hands. "We'll sign, just... please don't make this public." Too late. I pulled out my phone, showing them the pending court date. "The hearing's next week. These signatures just make it official." "What do you want?" Dad asked quietly. "I want you to feel it," I said. "The helplessness, the betrayal, the knowledge that someone you trusted completely has total control over your future." They signed one by one, defeat written in every stroke. "Now what?" Kyson asked, his arrogance finely cracked. I gathered the papers carefully. "Now you leave, all of you, and you think about every time you told me I wasn't worth investing in." "And the house," Mom whispered. "We'll discuss that in court." I stood up, straightening my jacket. "Thank you for coming. The tea set was Grandma's, by the way. She left it to me in a secret will, along with a letter about how she saw everything but couldn't stop you." They filed out, shoulders slumped, leaving their tea unfinished. The honey lavender scent lingered, sweet and deadly, like revenge served at exactly the right temperature. The courthouse buzzed with whispered conversations as my family filed into the room. Mum wore her church clothes, the outfit reserved for when she needed to appear sympathetic. Dad kept adjusting his tie. Kyson slumped in his seat, refusing to look at anyone. Zara sat beside me, legal files arranged with military precision. Ready? I've been ready for 10 years. The judge entered and everyone rose. As we sat, I caught Mum making the sign of the cross. Your Honour, Zara began, we're here regarding the property at 1542 Maple Street. My client, Harmony, has legally acquired all debts and liens through her LLC. Objection, my parents' lawyer stood. The acquisition was predatory. Overruled, the judge interrupted it. The paperwork is in order. Continue. Zara nodded. We'd like to present evidence of systematic financial manipulation spanning a decade. She projected the first document, my empty college fund statement from 10 years ago. Mum gasped softly. This money, Zara explained, was left specifically to my client by her grandfather. It was transferred without her consent to fund her brother's failed medical school attempts. The judge peered at Kyson. How many attempts? 3, Your Honour, I answered, at a cost of over $200,000. That money was a family decision, Mom burst out. The judge raised an eyebrow. Was Miss Murray part of this family decision? I was informed after the transfer, I said quietly. I was told college wasn't necessary for girls like me. Zara displayed more documents, my student loan statements, work records showing 3 simultaneous jobs, academic transcripts proving I'd succeeded despite their sabotage. While funding her brother's repeated failures, Zara continued, the parents remortgaged their home multiple times. My client purchased these debts legally to prevent further financial destruction. Your Honour, my parents' lawyer interjected, this is clearly an act of revenge. No, I stood up. This is an intervention. The judge motioned for me to continue. 2 weeks ago, my brother stole from his employer to cover gambling debts. I produced the evidence. He then asked me for money, claiming it was for medical books. Kyson jumped up. You don't know anything. Sit down, the judge ordered. Ms. Murray, continue. My parents enabled his behaviour for years, sacrificing their retirement, their home, and my future. As a trauma therapist, I recognise destructive patterns. This had to stop. Mum started crying. Dad stared at his hands. Furthermore, Zara added, we have evidence of Mr. Kyson Murray opening credit cards in his parents' names without their knowledge. The courtroom erupted. Kyson's face went from red to white. Order, the judge commanded. Mr. Murray, are you aware that's fraud? Kyson slumped further. I was going to pay it back when I became a doctor. A profession you failed to enter 3 times, the judge noted dryly. I pulled out one final document. Your Honour, I'd like to present my grandfather's original will. Mum's head snapped up. He specifically stated that my college fund was not to be used for any other purpose. I unfolded the yellowed paper. He wrote, to my granddaughter Harmony, who reminds me that quiet strength outlasts loud weakness. The judge reviewed the will, then looked at my parents. You deliberately violated these terms. We thought, Dad's voice cracked, we thought we were investing in success. Instead, I said, you invested in failure, and now you've lost everything. The judge shuffled papers. Given the evidence, I'm upholding Ms. Murray's ownership of the property. Additionally, I'm referring the credit card fraud for criminal investigation. Kyson collapsed into his chair. Mum's sobs echoed through the courtroom. However, the judge continued, Ms. Murray has proposed terms for a potential lease agreement. Would you like to hear them? My parents nodded desperately. Monthly rent at market rate, I stated. All funds to be placed in a trust for future grandchildren's education, non-negotiable. You'd let us stay, Mum whispered, under my terms, with proper boundaries, and Kyson moves out immediately. But where will he go? Dad protested. That's not my problem anymore, I replied. You taught me about investment risks, remember? The judge signed the final order. Property ownership is confirmed. Lease terms approved. Mr. Murray, please remain for questioning about the credit card fraud. As everyone stood, Mom reached for my arm. Harmony, please. Please what? I turned to face her. Please forget. Please forgive. You had 10 years to say please, to ask how I was doing, to care about my success. We were wrong, Dad said quietly. Yes, you were. I gathered my papers. The lease agreement will be delivered tomorrow, along with a bill for my student loans, which you'll pay before spending another dime on Kyson's future. I walked out of the courtroom, Zara beside me, leaving behind the sounds of my mother's tears and my brother's protests as officers approached him. You taught me what betrayal looks like, I whispered, echoing words from long ago. I just learned to do it better. The courthouse doors closed behind me, and for the first time in 10 years, I felt the weight of my grandfather's stolen trust lift from my shoulders. Sometimes revenge doesn't need violence. Sometimes it just needs patience, paperwork, and the perfect cup of tea. The fallout was swift and merciless. Within hours of the court hearing, my phone exploded with messages from extended family members. How could you do this to your own parents? Aunt Linda wrote. You've always been jealous of your brother, Cousin Rachel posted on Facebook. I deleted the messages without responding. 10 years of silence had taught me its power. Zara brought me coffee and her laptop the next morning. You're trending in the local Facebook groups, she said. Your mum's church friends are having a field day. I scanned the posts. Ungrateful daughter destroys family. Prayer circle for the Murrays. Local therapist shows her true colours. They're calling for a boycott of your practice, Zara warned. As if on cue, my office phone rang. It was Mrs. Patterson, a long-term client. I'm cancelling all future appointments, she said stiffly. I can't trust someone who'd turn on their own family. 3 more cancellations followed. I added them to my records without comment. Then something unexpected happened. Dr. Murray's office, my receptionist said, I have 5 new client requests. They specifically asked for you after reading about the court case. By afternoon, the number had doubled. My inbox filled with messages. You helped me find the courage to stand up to my abusive parents. Finally, someone who understands family isn't always right. Can you help me set boundaries like you did? Sebastian called during lunch. Our wait list just hit 3 months. People are sharing your story in trauma support groups. The local newspaper ran an opinion piece, When the Scapegoat Becomes the Owner. The reporter interviewed former clients who spoke about how I'd helped them escape toxic family dynamics. You're not just a therapist anymore, Zara said. You're a symbol. A week after the hearing, I drove past my childhood home. Kyson's expensive SUV was gone, replaced by a moving truck. He was stuffing boxes into a friend's car while Mom watched from the porch, crying quietly. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. Your brother's moving to a shared apartment across town. Your mother's heartbroken. I didn't respond. Later that evening, my high school friend Jessica messaged me. Remember all those times your parents excluded you from family events? I kept screenshots. She posted them publicly. Text messages showing my parents making excuses for why I couldn't attend holidays. Emails discussing how to avoid telling me about family gatherings. Photos of Kyson's celebrations where I wasn't invited. The church prayer circle went silent. Mom called, sobbing. People are being so cruel. They're saying terrible things about us online. Truth often feels cruel, I replied, then hung up. Kyson tried next, his voice slurring slightly. You've ruined everything. I was going to be something. You still can be, I said, just not on my dime anymore. The next day, I received an unexpected email from my grandfather's old friend, Robert. Clint would be proud. He always said you had his spine of steel. The family thought he was crazy leaving you that money, said you were too quiet to succeed. Guess quiet doesn't mean weak, does it? I printed his email and added it to my growing file. A month passed. My practice flourished. Local support groups asked me to speak about financial abuse in families. 3 more therapists joined my office to handle the overflow of clients. Then came the morning I'd been waiting for. "Your mother's in the lobby," my receptionist announced. "She doesn't have an appointment." I found her sitting alone, clutching her designer handbag, the last one she'd bought before everything changed. "We're living in a motel," she said without preamble, "until the lease agreement is finalised." "I know, the same motel where I cleaned rooms at 18. She flinched. "Kyson's not doing well. He's drinking, gambling again. He needs help. There are excellent addiction counsellors in my network. I'll send you their numbers." "That's not what I meant." "I know what you meant." I sat across from her. "But I'm not your backup plan anymore." "When did you get so hard?" she whispered. "Around the same time you taught me I wasn't worth investing in." She left without another word. Through my office window I watched her walk to the bus stop. Another new experience for her. That evening I reviewed the lease agreement one final time. Market rate rent, strict payment terms, no subletting allowed, no financial support for Kyson permitted. "You're really going through with this?" Zara asked, watching me sign. "They wanted an investment property," I said. "Now they have one. They just didn't expect to be the tenants." My phone buzzed with a news alert. Local woman's family drama sparks discussion about financial abuse. Below it was a quote from a domestic violence counsellor. Sometimes the strongest revenge is simply standing up and saying, "No more." I closed my laptop and looked at the family photo still sitting on my desk, the last one taken before everything changed. We all smiled for the camera, our secrets hidden behind perfect teeth and pressed clothes. Tomorrow I'd take that photo down. But tonight I let it remind me of how far I'd come from that quiet girl who thought family meant sacrifice. Sometimes karma doesn't need wings to fly. Sometimes it just needs a good lawyer and an iron will. The autumn breeze carried the scent of sage through the open windows of my childhood home. Inside, a young family was making it their own, painting walls, hanging pictures, filling it with the kind of love I never knew there. "The rent payment came through on time," Zara said, checking her phone. "3rd month in a row." We sat in my car, parked across the street. Mum and Dad had moved into a small apartment nearby, following my lease terms to the letter. Fear of homelessness, it seemed, was an excellent motivator. "I have something for them," I said, reaching into the back seat for a sealed box. "Old family photos I found while clearing out Grandpa's storage unit." "Are you sure?" I nodded. "It's time." The box held more than photos. Underneath them lay Grandpa Clint's final letter, the one he'd hidden in his desk, dated just days before he died. Walking to the apartment felt like crossing a timeline. Each step measured in memories, in quiet hurts, in silent victories. Dad opened the door. He'd aged decades in months. His golden boy dreams turned to grey reality. "Harmony?" Surprise cracked his voice. "We weren't expecting—" "I found these." I held out the box. "You should have them." Mum appeared behind him, smaller somehow, her designer clothes replaced by department store basics. "Come in," she said softly. "Please." Their apartment was clean but sparse. No photos of Kyson on the walls, no pretense of perfect family life. "How is he?" I asked, though I already knew. My network kept me informed of my brother's struggles with rehab, with minimum wage jobs, with reality. "Sober," Dad said. "Finally working at a pharmacy, not as a doctor, but alive," Mum finished. "And learning." I placed the box on their coffee table. "There's a letter in here, from Grandpa Clint. I think you should read it." They opened it together, hands trembling. "My dearest granddaughter," Mom read aloud, tears forming. "By the time you read this, they'll have taken your future and given it to your brother. I know because I've watched them do it slowly for years. But I've also watched you quiet and strong, building yourself despite them. The money I left you wasn't just for college. It was proof that someone saw your worth. Use it for the world you build, not the one that breaks you." Dad sat heavily on the couch. He knew. All along he knew what we would do. "He knew what you had already done," I corrected. "The small betrayals, the constant comparisons, the way you measured love in dollar signs and medical degrees." "We thought we were right," Mum whispered. "We were so sure." "That's the thing about certainty," I said. "It makes excellent blinders." I stood to leave, but Mum caught my hand. "The family photos, why give them back?" "Because they're your past, not my future." I gently pulled away. "Do with them what you choose. No return address needed." Outside, the autumn air felt cleaner somehow. Zara waited in the car, watching as I walked away from the apartment without looking back. "You okay?" she asked as I slid into the driver's seat. "Better than okay." My phone buzzed. A payment notification. $2,200 transferred automatically from my LLC account to cover this month's mortgage. The house across the street glowed warmly in the setting sun, its new family visible through windows that once witnessed my silence. "Want to know something funny?" I said to Zara. "I thought revenge would feel like fire, like lightning, like something huge and dramatic. And instead, it feels like peace, like finally being able to breathe." We drove to my office where a new client waited, another daughter of another family that measured love in all the wrong ways. She sat in my chair, twisted with anxiety and guilt, ready to break free. "Tell me about your family," I said, my voice steady and sure. She looked at me, hope flickering in her eyes. "Will it ever stop hurting?" "No," I answered honestly, "but one day it'll stop controlling you, and that's when you'll truly be free." Later that night, I updated my files one last time, added the final documents, the last photographs, the closing chapter of a story 10 years in the making. My phone lit up with a text from Dad. "Thank you for the photos and for letting us stay in town and for stopping us before we lost everything." I didn't respond. Some silences speak louder than words. Instead, I opened my grandfather's letter again, tracing his familiar handwriting. "Use it for the world you build, not the one that breaks you." And I had. I'd built a practice that helped others break free. Built boundaries strong enough to withstand guilt. Built a future that no one could take away. I closed my office door, leaving behind the weight of old memories and broken promises. Outside, the city hummed with life, with possibility, with the quiet power of patience rewarded. Revenge, I'd learned, doesn't sound like screaming or breaking glass. Sometimes it sounds like a knock on a door that's no longer yours, like the rustle of old photographs being packed away, like the soft click of a lock turning one final time. Sometimes it sounds exactly like freedom,